Life does not always go as planned. You may be on plan B, C, D, E, F, or G, and that's okay. Life can be beautiful and messy. It doesn't have to be perfect. After crying on my kitchen floor for nearly 2 years when my first husband left, I found my plan B and a depth of resilience I didn't even know I had. I'm Beth Montpass, life coach. Have you ever needed to really reinvent yourself? I redesigned my life by allowing my feelings, forgiving and accepting myself in the new reality, really surrendering. Plus, connecting with others. We don't have to do it alone. Reframing our negative thoughts and emotions, and by not looking too far down the road. Now, I have an incurable joy and zest for life. My favorite hashtag is, what if it's better? If you're looking for motivation and inspiration with other resilient, fun, successful midlife women, keep listening to the Pain to Power podcast. You'll meet amazing women who dropped being the victim and found victory. Listen in to create a spark in you to navigate this wild ride called life that comes with living full out. Hello, my friends. Oh, Kimberly Price is my featured interview this month with the Pain to Power podcast. And Kimberly, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Kimberly is the mother of 4. I so align with that. And the founder of B. She's the creator of trusted spaces for women to be empowered to be themselves. And that's what we get to talk about today. I would love to have you introduce yourself a little bit if you want to share more and share about the pain that we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Beth. I know we all lead busy lives, but I was excited today. We talked a little bit before the show about what is the pain that you want to talk about? Life's a journey of goals and opportunities. And so which one do we pick? And for me, I think today it's an open one, but the pain of becoming yourself. And what does that look like? And how do we get through it? And what are the different steps? We don't get to skip the steps. And so what do those look like? And how can we support each other through the journey?
I love that. I feel like there's some obvious pains that are easier or more obvious. Divorce and cancer and just disappointments in life. And I love that we are going to talk about one that I feel like doesn't get much limelight, and that is this journey to being ourselves, becoming the next version me. I've been on a journey the last 3 years of being aware, being curious, right? Like, oh, wow, there's lots of different ways to grow up, parenting styles, all of it has created me to be the woman that I am. And so share with our listeners and with me, where does your journey begin if this becoming yourself? And I want to hear about the pain of it, right? When was it time when you were really stuck and didn't see the real you?
Yeah, I would take it all the way back to conception. We are becoming ourselves the moment that we become these little cells get together and we're created. And that happens through the womb and birth and childhood. That's why I say these stages are these places that we have to go in order to get to the next step. We're always becoming. I'm going to fast forward a lot, or we will be on this Zoom forever. I would say that my awakening, I feel like at some point in every person's journey, there's an awakening to self. And it isn't necessarily a mountaintop, I know who I am. It is a sense. It is a very intuitive process or thing that happens that we all of a sudden are uncomfortable with where we've been. And we know that there's something on the other side of that we're going to start moving toward. I think in that process, a lot of individuals get stuck because they don't necessarily trust the roadmap that's inside of them. So they look outwardly for the things in their life that are going to lead them to that place. It's a calling from the inside. It's nothing from the outside that's saying, we're talking about this right now. And it isn't me saying you're going to become yourself at some point. That person goes, oh, yeah, I am. It is something that happens inside them. It's almost a flower blooming, or if we want to use metaphors, the caterpillar breaking out of the chrysalis. And then it's following that, it's trusting it. And ultimately, it's doing the work to get there.
As you look back, how did you know you weren't the version of yourself that you wanted to be? What were some of the self-doubt? I heard you just say you were doubting yourself. You didn't trust yourself. And what else? I want to just kind of get underneath. What's that look like when you're struggling with becoming yourself?
So my journey, which I think sometimes our stories resonate more than a lot of wisdom and information, things that I've learned.
Right.
For me, I was in my early 30s. We have 4 kids. They were all under the age of 6. And I had a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. And that really wasn't the beginning of the pain I had experienced in life. I had a lot of pains growing up, family of divorce, some verbal and physical abuse. There's a lot of hardship going through life that I experienced, but that moment in my life where I heard you have cancer, that was really a moment of, whoa, life is fragile. And I had to wake up. It was really kind of at that point where I call it standing on the edge of a cliff, of making the decision, I'm either going to just become a survivor of this or a thriver in this. I define survivorship. We're all survivors, every single one of us, even if our attitude is negative and ugly and we're not moving in any direction. If you're alive, you are a survivor. When you step into thrivership, you have a choice. Every single moment of every single day becomes a choice. And you're no longer just here in existence, you're here creating a life that you want. And so I tell the story in different speeches that I've done of my moment was receiving that call. It was in our bathroom. I had been waiting for the results to come back and receive that call from a friend. And it was a 30-second experience of every imaginable thing going through my head, from death to losing my hair to, oh my gosh, what about my kids, to all the things, to looking in the mirror and consciously saying, okay, you're going to walk out that door and choose to live the next 5 minutes or the next 50 years of your life, or you're not. And so I made the decision to walk out the door and use every moment of every day to do whatever I could to become who I was meant to be while on this earth.
Wow. It sounds like it took a lot of courage and bravery and digging deep. Like this was not just a surface thing. It was hard and painful. How did you put support around you? Because I could see myself talking myself into, you're going to open that door, girl, and you've done hard things, right? I've got my game talk on.
Yeah,
And then it gets hard.
let's get hard.
Life hits. And so did you put support around you? What did you do beyond make the decision and choose? Because choosing is a pivotal step in this, I hear you say.
I'm going to give you my version of this. I had a mentor that I heard that would say, it's really just putting one foot in front of the other every single day. And what's interesting is when I opened that door, I had no idea what I was going to go through and experience. I just consciously made that decision. And then, like you said, then it got hard. For me, it was one choice after another, getting up and being present. I would say I surrounded myself with, first, it was close friends and family. It was my faith. Through time, it became other cancer thrivers. The journey really took me to different places depending on where I was at in that moment. I knew I couldn't do it alone. So I always had, whatever stage I was in of that, I always had a core foundation of things around me that helped support me. And there were practices in that too. And that's part of doing the work, is understanding it's not just the people, that's a piece of it, but you also have to have the practices to be able to get you through where you're at in the journey. You're like an onion. You got to peel back each layer one at a time, and we can't go to the center of the onion without cutting away everything around it.
Well, I recognize even the nature of my question, like who did you surround yourself with? Still, my go-to is I need other people must know more about this than I do. And it isn't that we can't ask for support, because that's a huge piece of it. And what I heard you say is so much of it is an inside game. It's you stepping through, you not looking too far down the road because you
Yes.
just looked at the step in front of you and you just kept stepping. You didn't know. And isn't that the definition of faith? It's keep stepping without evidence.
Yeah. I think it could have been a lot easier. I do.
What do you mean?
I talk a lot about this with B. I think the journey, although I had myself with great people, the journey, I had to forge my own path. I had to figure out how to do the work. It was inside of me, and all of the things that I've done to get there, I have created or have come from me in some way. But I don't think that every individual has to do that, in the sense that, yes, your journey is going to be your journey, and the stages you're going to go through are going to be the stages you go through and how you deal with those. But there are tools along the way that I didn't know existed, and even groups along the way. There weren't greater groups that were there able to support me in things, because everybody was doing the same thing. We were all off in our individual spaces with our individual pains, and still are, trying to find the way. My tagline for B is empowering me to be a stronger we. And that we is so important. As I become who I am able to utilize my strength, my courage, the things that I've learned to be able to support the greater we around me. And so how do we do that collectively?
This is really juicy because I feel like people want to know, what do the work even means? So for you, you're talking about tools and a practice and a we, not just you, but there is an inner game there that I certainly hear. For you, what is doing the work?
It consists of many things. Definitely morning routine, self-care is an example of doing the work. And self-care in a bigger way than going and getting a pedicure.
Yeah.
Those are great, not putting that down at all. And that's a part of this. But when I get up in the morning in 2023, I've dedicated 3 hours of every morning to myself.
3 hours. I love it.
Yeah. And I know that sounds like a lot, but if you take 8 hours of your day are in sleep and 8 hours of your day, let's say work, you've got 8 hours to play with. Look at how many hours you're online. What are you doing online? Scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Well, I decided this year I was going to be intentional. I was going to get up earlier. So I'm getting up at 6 o'clock, and from 6 to 9 o'clock in the morning. And then I start work after that. Now, for some, they have to be at work at 7 in the morning. So what does that look like? Is there 2 hours in the morning and 1 in the afternoon? But I dedicate that time to, I have a whole list of things. And then I went into my calendar and I decided, okay, journaling. I want to do that X number of times a week, and I want to do it for 20 minutes. Prayer. I want to do that X number of times a week for so much. And I made a list of all the things I wanted to make sure I got in a week and how much time. And then I mapped that out and I put it into my calendar. So every day I have 3 hours of exercise. So if you want to look at mind, body, spirit. So it's exercise, good eating, so juicing, and then a lot of meditation, yoga, prayer, journaling, that type of work. So I created a system that took me time to integrate those things in. And now I'm at this place where I can say, I want more time for myself. I need more time for myself. I'm better for everyone else when I have that 3 hours.
And if you're listening to this interview and you're like, I don't have 3 hours like she does, I hear you and I get you. And I was you as well, where I thought I had to check my email. I had to see what went on while I was sleeping. And I can say, start somewhere, start with a few minutes. And I'm with you, Kimberly. I now don't try to do any outside work before 10 in the morning. Use that like 7 to 10 time. And I started in a meditation challenge and I got some support around trying to create. I didn't know, like, I can't even sit still for 2 minutes. How can I sit there for 10? But getting curious and getting experimental and trying some things that can really ground us. So it sounds like your morning routine, meditation, prayer, exercise, good nutrition into your body, into your brain, anything. I feel like our audience is so at like, what could ground me? What can bring me back to connecting me to me?
The two biggest things that I would say three, I have three things that really connect me back to me. The quiet, and in the quiet, a form of either just being quiet, 5 minutes. If you can't do anything else at this point other than go into your closet, go into the shower and take 5 minutes and just be quiet. And you can call that meditation.
You can call it stillness,
Yes.
quiet. It's just like shower. I used to just think shower was like about getting the job done. But now I realize like I'm looking up at that water and I'm expecting it to give me peace and calm and be God to me. So showers, I love that. So get quiet. That's your first one. Love it.
And when you do that, I would encourage you, put your hand on your heart, and I would encourage you to close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths and think about one thing in your life that brings you joy or makes you happy or is important to you. A lot of people have trouble with quiet, silence, stillness, meditation. So this is just a time where you can just maybe be grateful for that thing that has brought you that happiness or that joy. And then you can go deeper into that as you make that a practice and it becomes more consistent. Suggestions like put it in your calendar as a reminder, and you'll start to crave it because things will start to blossom from that. And that's when you can start to add other little things. I didn't start with 3 hours. I'm 13 and a half years out from my diagnosis. 2009, we're in 2023, and I'm just telling you I'm doing 3 hours. Like 10 days ago started 3 hours. I didn't do that before. For me, it started back in my original diagnosis was, heck, if I could get out of bed in the morning and put on my happy face and walk down and make breakfast for my kids, that was a big deal. And to consistently do that, right? So start where you are. And I would say the biggest thing today is say, yes, yes, I want to do something.
I think I've always been everybody else's cheerleader but my own. And so when I hear the 3 hours, I'm not expecting you sitting cross-legged Zen for 3 hours. You're reserving that time for you. There's
Yes.
other things you're doing in there, but you don't have appointments. You're not scheduling phone calls and you're protecting it.
No cooking for other people, no picking up the house. This is not a time to clean. I know some women enjoy cleaning. I cannot stand cleaning.
Neither. I
have friends
just hired a housekeeper, just hired
Yeah.
somebody to clean once a month at my house.
So those things do not count. These are things that actually nourish. Think about the word nourish. They nourish you. They bring you life. They bring you closer to who you are. And cleaning, although it can fill someone up, I'm just using that as an example, it's still outward. So the things that I'm doing are really nourishing me in a way that, I don't know, makes me stronger, makes me better, more aware.
I think the news and the TV and scrolling you mentioned can really pull us. How do you approach those things?
Yeah, and time, right? So I'm speaking from a place of having done a lot of work in this. And I do want to say, because I know sometimes when we listen to things, as I've been along my journey and I've come across a podcast or I've come across a book, and I see where somebody is on the other side, it always, for a long time, it felt like standing at the bottom of Mount Everest, never having trained and being told, all right, you're going to go to 29,000 feet. Just overwhelming. There's no way I'll ever be there. There's no way I can ever do that. She doesn't get my story. She doesn't know what I've been through. She doesn't know how I feel. Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do. I have been in the deepest, darkest places and found my way out. And it literally just took putting one foot in front of the other, making one decision after the other, even when I didn't want to, that I was going to get to the other side of it. I didn't know when, I didn't know how. It often didn't feel good, but I kept waking up and saying yes to doing the work. And I always, always went to bed and said to myself, tomorrow's going to be a new day. Tomorrow's going to be a new day.
I love that. New moment, new day. I even clap my hands So it doesn't have to be waiting for a literal new day. You can clap your hands and go, new moment.
Yes.
From the breakdown, from the chaos, from the bad phone call, from the snarky email or something, you can really shift. And I even say to myself, Beth, have a little amnesia here. Just forget what happened and clean, fresh slate. Start anew. That's forgiveness and gentleness that I would say to you as my friend. And yet I don't always give it to myself. Can you speak just a little bit? Because I see you as a strong, tall, powerful woman. And yet you talked about self-doubt when we first got started. And was it self-doubt? And
Oh yeah, I've had
yeah.
that. Yeah, absolutely.
So how has that evolved? Because you send off a vibe that you trust yourself like no shit. I
Yeah.
trust it. I wouldn't have thought it if I didn't act on it. Like you trust yourself. So can you speak into that?
Yeah, I would say in talking about becoming myself, one of the hardest things that I went through was loving myself. I would walk into a room, and when I would walk into a room, I think what nobody else ever believed is that I didn't have the confidence that my outer body inside didn't have the confidence that my outer self put on. It was a mask. So I often speak about walking into a room, and I always had one of two choices. I can walk in as the person that inside was screaming, which was me, screaming to be myself, the powerful, courageous, capable, compassionate, gentle, loving, trusted friend or person. Or I could walk in and play smaller, meek, humble, and I don't want to say victim, but in some ways, kind of like a victim. Because if I played small, I wouldn't, one, put out somebody else's light, or two, be judged for being too powerful in the room. And all of that had to do with I didn't know myself, I didn't trust myself, and I didn't love myself. And that journey took years for me to uncover trauma, pain. I mean, layer after layer after layer to get there.
It's a process. It's a keep going. It's a keep stepping through it, is what I hear. And patience doesn't happen overnight, and be gentle on ourselves. Lastly, I would ask if you had a word or a sentence or a message for your younger self or somebody who's way back in the pain and stuck there, what would it be? Maybe a perspective that you see today.
I'm going to say what came to me right when you said it. I always want to go into this. There are two words that I heard when you asked that question. One is always be curious. Be curious about yourself, be curious about those around you, be curious about anger, about pain, about joy, about happiness. Be curious about it all. And the other thing I would say is then be compassionate. And you have compassion for yourself. Even if you don't feel it, tell yourself you have it, because with practice, you'll become it.
And those of you that are just listening, you can't see what I can see. Kimberly has some beautiful bulletin boards behind her, and one of them says believe. And I'm like, that's exactly what you just described, is believe and keep going and keep stepping. How can people connect with you if they want to follow you?
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook handles, Kimberly Price, and there's no E in Kimberly at the end. We have a platform. It's still free for women that want to join this new movement that we have to, again, create the trusted spaces where you can feel supported and inspired and empowered to be yourself. And that's beathriver.com.
I love it. And I'm part of that. Come play with Kimberly and I over there. Thank you, Kimberly, for being generous, being transparent, being authentic, and sharing your journey with us. And thank you for choosing a path of joy and a path of possibility and not staying in the pain. The world gets to hear your message. And I love you, friend.
I love you too. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of From Pain to Power.
I'm so grateful you tuned in to another episode of Pain to Power podcast. Each month, I'm committed to bringing you juicy, raw, real life stories and shine a light on the women whose lives are often very messy, and yet they dropped being a victim to their life circumstances and stood in victory in their thoughts and emotions. I love to inspire and motivate women to love their life. If you want to receive more inspiration, come play in my private Facebook group called Best Life Tribe for inspiration on the daily, or join my email list for connections, strategies, and tips. Join at bethmontpass.com. I am a certified coach, trainer, and speaker. I lead inspiring private and small group workshops, resulting in authentic coaching in a vibrant community. I host personal and group retreats as well as virtual gatherings designed to ignite your life and get you back to loving your life. Let's get social. Connect with me on Facebook at Bethmont Pass Coach, or Instagram at Bethmont Pass, or on LinkedIn at Bethmont Pass.